Hi, this is Krista at the Secret Yarnery. Today we are making this gorgeous Dirty Granny crochet scarf. You'll love this pattern so much. It's a super simple one-row repeat, always ends the same, always starts the same, and it's super easy to remember what you're doing throughout the row. If you would like to follow along with the written pattern, it's available over on my website, secretyarnery.com. And you don't have to worry about being able to read a pattern. All of my patterns are written in plain English, just like I am talking in this video. I used Magic Glitz from Ice Yarns, but if you don't want to use glitz, you can use Magic Light. That is the same yarn without the glitter. Or you could use any other yarn that you have. Just use the hook size recommended on the yarn label. So for my scarf, I used 150 grams of yarn, or 5.3 ounces. That's 540 meters, or 591 yards. So you'll need 5 stitch markers to start and a chain 40. The finished measurements are 42 inches by 8.5 inches, or 183 centimeters by 22 centimeters. If you want to make one with just one ball of yarn, you'll need 100 grams of yarn, or 3.5 ounces. 360 meters, or 394 yards, and you'll also need 4 stitch markers to start and chain 32. The finished size is 54 inches by 6.5 inches, or 137 centimeters by 16 centimeters. For mine, it says a 4 to 4.5 millimeters, so I'm going to be using a 4.5 millimeter hook for my scarf, and I'm going to use 1 millimeter larger for my chain. So I'm going to be using a 5.5 millimeter just for my starting chain. You will also need 5 stitch markers, a needle for sewing in your ends, and a pair of scissors. So let's get started. Start by making a slip knot any which way you normally do, shrinking that down and popping it onto your larger crochet hook. So I'm putting it on my 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. We want to chain sets of 8. If you want to make your scarf just with one skein of yarn, then just get 4 stitch markers. If you want to make it the same as mine, get 5 stitch markers. And chain 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. There's all of our pretty little V's. That's the front of our stitches. Just place your thumb gently on top and roll it to the side. We want to be looking for these little camel bumps, or the back loops. The first one is right underneath our working yarn. So there's our working yarn. And here is our very first camel bump, or our first back loop. We want to pop a stitch marker into that back loop that we just made, right underneath our working yarn, and chain 8 more. 1, 2, 3, 7, and 8. And again, roll that chain to its side. Look for that camel bump, or that back loop, right underneath the working yarn, and pop another stitch marker on, just onto that stitch we just made. And now keep going, making sets of 8 until all of your stitch markers are used up, or a total of 40 stitches for my size scarf, or 32 chains for a 1-ball scarf. So there is my chain of 40. I've used up all 5 stitch markers. So put that big hook away, get your regular hook, the one suggested on your yarn label, and pop that loop onto your hook, and chain 1. Now roll that chain to the side. We want to be looking for the 6th chain, just counting our back loop. So that first back loop is right underneath our working yarn. The second one has a stitch marker in it. So there is 3, 4, 5, and 6 is right down there. So we want to go into the 6th chain from our hook, and working into your back loops if you can. If it's difficult to work into your back loops, you can work into the front. So into the 6th chain from your hook, just slide that back loop on and make 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. Chain 2, 1 and 2, and 2 more double crochets into that same chain. There's 1 and 2. So now we're going to skip 3 chains. So just counting those back loops again, 1, 2, 3. We're going to work into our 4th stitch, our 4th chain, and that is right where our stitch marker is. So the same chain as our stitch marker, we're going to do 5 double crochets. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Wrap your yarn, skip 3 chains again. So just looking into those back loops. The first one right underneath our working yarn. So 1, 2, 3. We want to work into the 4th stitch, the 4th chain, and we want to do 2 double crochets. There's 1 and 2. Chain 2, 1, 2, and 2 more double crochets into the same chain, into the same stitch. 1 and 2. Skip 3 chains and working into the 4th, right where our stitch marker is, we're going to do 5 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And you can take those stitch markers out if they are in your way or bothering you. They're just there to help us keep track of our chain. Now skipping 3 chains again, so 1, 2, 3, working into the 4th. We're going to do 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets all into the same chain. 2, chain 2, and 2 more double crochets into the same chain. 1 and 2. Skip 3 chains and working into the 4th, right where our stitch marker is, we're going to do 5 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Skip 3 chains and into the 4th, 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. There's 1, 2, chain 2, and 2 more double crochets into the same chain, the same stitch. 1 and 2. So we're just going to keep working along our chain like that. You can pause the video if you want and just keep working along doing 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets, skipping 3, and then 5 double crochets all the way along until you reach the end of your chain. So now we have 3 chains left. So wrap your yarn, skip 2 chains. We want to work into that very last chain right on top of our knot and make 1 double crochet to finish the row. 1 double crochet. So now you can go ahead and take out those stitch markers if you haven't already. You can also check the width of your scarf and see if that is the width you want it to be. If you want it to be wider, just go back and add 8 more chains. And if you want it to be more narrow, go back and remove 8 chains. So now we're ready to start row 2. To start row 2, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn your work. So to turn your work, slide your hand under your working yarn, grab your work, and just turn it. So for the row below, we have done glasses, which have this space, this empty space in the middle, and we have done olives. So our olives are the 5 double crochets, and our glasses have this space in the middle. So we're going to be making a glass into a glass and an olive into an olive all the way along. So glass, olive, glass, olive, glass, olive, glass, all the way along your row. So the first glass gets a glass. Wrap your yarn and into that space, 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, and 2 double crochets into that same space. So that is a glass. And now into our olive, we want to find that center stitch. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 double crochets. We want to go into the third. So there is 1, 2, and 3. Just the top of that olive, that center stitch right there. So into that center stitch, or the third double crochet of the olive, making sure you get 2 strands of that stitch on the top of your hook. Make 5 double crochets. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Wrap your yarn into the center of the next glass. We're going to do a glass. So 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, 1 and 2, and 2 more double crochets into that same space, just the center of that glass. Now into the center of your next olive, we're going to do an olive. So into the third stitch, there is 1, 2, and 3. We want to go into the third stitch right there, the center of that olive, and make an olive. So 5 double crochets into that center stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Wrap your yarn into the center of your next glass. Make a glass, so 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, and 2 double crochets into the center of the same glass, 1 and 2. Into the center of your next olive, that center stitch, 5 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So next is a glass. So glasses are 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, 1 and 2, and 2 more double crochets into that same space, just the center of that glass from the row below. So into the next olive, we're doing olive, so into the third stitch, so 1, 2, 3, into the third stitch, 5 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we just have our 1 glass left. We're always starting and finishing with glasses. So into that last glass, we'll do a glass. So 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets all into the same space. Just like that. Now at the end of our row, it will look like this. We have a little hill happening here. We want to work into the top of our chain 3. So we have our 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. We want to go into the chain. So into the top of that chain, we want to make 1 double crochet. So we're always going to finish with 1 double crochet into the top of the chain. So there is our 1 double crochet. And that finishes row 2. So quick little recap for row 3. We're always going to start with a chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Slide your hand under and turn your work. So So for the repeat, we're going to put a glass into a glass and an olive into an olive all the way along. So glass, olive, glass, olive, glass, olive. The glasses are worked right into the spaces. And the olives are worked into the third double crochet of each olive. So it's going to go in and make sure you get 2 strands of that stitch on the top of your hook. And we always start and finish with a glass. You can't make a martini without a glass. So we always start with a glass and we always end with a glass. So into that very first glass, we do a glass. Glasses are always 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, 1 and 2 more double crochets into that same space, 1 and 2. So for olives, we work into the third stitch. So 1, 2, and 3, just the top of that olive, the top of the hill, go right into that stitch, 2 strands of that stitch on the top of your hook, and make 5 double crochets, all into the same stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now keep going, making a glass into a glass and an olive into the top of the olive all the way along your row until you reach the end of your row. At the end of your row, we're going to work into the top of that chain 3 right there. So not into the double crochet, just the top of the chain 3. We want to have 2 strands of that chain on the top of our hook. So finish the row with 1 double crochet into the top of that chain 3. And that gives us our nice straight edge. So now pause the video and keep working along until your scarf is the length you want it to be, or you've run out of yarn. So at the end of your row, chain 1 and turn your work. Now we're going to make 1 single crochet right into this very first stitch, right here. So into that first stitch, 1 single crochet, and chain 2, 1 and 2. And we want to chain loosely for this row. Now into the center of our first glass, 1 single crochet, chain a loose 3, 1, 2, and 3. And now into the top of our olive, the center stitch, 1 single crochet, chain 3 loosely, 1, 2, 3. Into the center of our next glass right here, 1 single crochet, chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and into the center of the olive, 1 single crochet. So now you can pause the video and keep working along, doing a single crochet and a chain 3 into either the olive or the glass all the way along, and I'll meet you at the end of our row. So after our last single crochet into the glass, chain 2, 1, and 2, and now we're going to do our single crochet right into the top of our chain 3. So 1 single crochet and chain 1. So that secures your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. Sew in your tails and you're finished. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I did. I'd love to see how yours turned out. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook. All of those links are in the description box down below. And if you haven't joined and subscribed to this channel, go ahead and do that under this video right now. Thanks for hooking along. We'll see you in the next video, and stay hooked.